Hello, welcome to Now Tell Us. Now, this is a place where we have guests who come and tell us stories. They come and educate us, they come and inspire us, or maybe highlight a cause that we are interested in. And today we have a guest with us who is an author, but she's much more than that. Now, she's written a book which is known as Is Your Way in Your Way? And we will be touching on that, but much more than that. So, without taking one more minute, I'm going to welcome her into the show so that she can tell us. And I pray you stay there on Now Tell Us, listen to the episode, share it with your friends, and give us feedback. We'll appreciate. Or if you have questions, ask them and we'll answer them. So, here, welcome to the show, Cassandra,
Hi,
Crawley, Mayo. Hi, Cassandra.
hi, how are you?
I'm well. It's good to have you
Great.
on our show.
And I'm so grateful to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and we are excited to hear something from you and that is going to be of benefit to us. As always, we know that you have some great things to share. So, this is your show. Now, tell us. And to get us started, I would like you to tell us who is Cassandra and where is she? And let's get
Oh,
started there.
okay. Well, Cassandra Crawley Mayo, as you mentioned it, I am an author, I'm a speaker, and I am a mentor. And a
Mm-hmm.
little background on myself is I worked in corporate America for about 30 years. And in my capacity, I was always the first African American female in my space. And as a result of that, I became a trailblazer for others. And when I started, I was very naive that that really mattered, that I was the only African American female. And I think, through my career, the relationships that I built, I've learned so much, grown so much, and now I am serving. And I don't take any of that lightly, but it's kind of like, you've many of us may have heard of people say, no test, no money. Like if we haven't been through anything, that hey, we wouldn't learn and we wouldn't be who we are today. So I just attribute my life, and that has created me to be the woman that I am today.
Wow, beautiful. And you've been through a journey, as we have been, and we have heard you say, and you've been through anything that we may get to hear and learn from right now, which is going to be of benefit to us. Now, would like to know, even before you became a corporate woman, how was your childhood?
Well, my childhood, I grew up in a suburban town in what I would call the Tidewater area in the United States, which was a lot of people may have known it as Virginia Beach area, Hampton, Newport News area. I grew up as an only child. I had grew up with both parents, and I always say that our childhood has a lot to do with our adulthood. So, and another thing I always say is, as we are getting older and we are parents ourselves, then we can look back on how we were parented and realize that we all have done the best that we could. So there may be things in my background that back in the day, of course, I knew more than my parents. But now, as I've gotten older, they were very wise, and I believe that they did a phenomenal job with me in spite of some of the challenges that we may have had in growing up.
Hmm. I like that perspective because many of us don't see it that way. I mean, looking back and saying, I did it the best that I could have done. And that's a good perspective from you because many times we judge ourselves, we are guilty of things that we've done along the way, and we never really appreciate sometimes how far we've come. So
Yeah,
it's a good thing that you remind us to appreciate everything.
right.
Yeah. And at this point, I let me. welcome every viewer who's joining us and those who will get to join us after we are through. Thank you very much, Dr. Mani, and for appreciating everything that we do. We really appreciate you. And let us keep on being the best version of ourselves, as Cassandra will continue to tell us. So, and then you came to this point of writing your book, which is a question, or rather, is your way in your way, and that sounds interesting. Being in my way.
Yes, yes.
Tell us a bit about it, please.
Yes, that's pretty a thought-provoking question. I've had
Hmm.
so many people look at it and repeat it like, Am I what? Is my way in my way?" Well, I wrote the book because my way was in my way, and I am now on a mission. And my mission is to empower. And my audience are women, but I'm getting some feedback from men that they should be a part of my audience. But I'm on a mission to empower women to mitigate self-imposed barriers that is preventing us from living our best life,
Hmm.
living the life that God has ordained us to live. And I think a pivotal moment for me writing it was, number one, God kept telling me to. This book has been in the making probably 12, 13 years, and I resisted it. I resisted it because I didn't want to be exposed. I didn't want to share some of my stories for fear that I would be ashamed. People would, I don't know, say things about me. I just had this fear that I didn't want people to know who I was and what I was really all about. And I realized how important that was because I believe authenticity transcends to transformation. And
Mm.
then from transformation, I get free. And so there was a story by a nurse by the name of Bonnie Ware, who was a hospice nurse. And she interviewed individuals that were transitioning. And what saddened me to see what the common threads were for people who were transitioning. And there were five of them, but two of them were striking. And that's a lot about why I wrote the book. Number one is individuals regretted that they were not true to themselves, and they regretted that they wish they could have been more happier. And when I thought about that, I said, well, what is stopping that? Why can't we do this? Yeah, life is tough. And and I also know that I remember a speaker talking about the richest place in the world was the graveyard. And
Hmm.
that's because there were so many unmet dreams. And
Hmm.
I made a decision, and that's what you have to do. You have to make a decision that you will not die with regrets. You will do all that you believe that you are guided to do. And then from that part, when you do that, you will determine and find out your life has so much more meaning. You have something to look forward to when you wake up in the morning because you know you're fulfilling that purpose. And I guarantee our purpose changes over time. But right
Hmm.
now, that was my purpose. And that propels me to get up in the morning and say, okay, who can I bless today? How can I, and what is it that I can do for others to ensure and empower them to start living their best life? And that's what that why the book was birthed. It's my baby. It was in me for so many years. And because of self imposed barriers like fear, I don't want people to know about me. Esteem battles, how we compare ourselves to everybody, how we have scars and resentment. So many of those things stop us. We get stuck from moving forward. And that's something that I wanted to do, or what I would say, that's my dream, that's my vision, to pivot. I want to pivot a generation of women to start living their best life.
Mm. That's beautiful. And I like that quote that you gave, which was famous with Dr. Miles Monroe.
Yes, yes,
Most,
absolutely.
yeah, some of the greatest wealth is in the graveyard. And it reminds me of this quote by also Mark Twain, who says that 20 years from now, you'll not regret of the things that you did, but rather you're going to regret of the things you did not know, you did not do. And I paraphrase that one.
That's
And
right.
And so when you have the opportunity to do what you can, then do it. And we thank you for writing that book and sharing your information that you share with us, even on this episode. And the question comes, you mentioned something there, which is one of the things that we come our ways come in our way. You mentioned fear, but we could be interested to know a few more things that could be the way that we are moving in, that could be in my way.
Yes.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, please. Now tell
Well,
us.
I always, and now I'm learning to face the fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's just so important because what's the worst that could happen? And then I get to a point, like you just indicated, I don't want to regret anything.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in deep in my heart that if it's something in my heart that is ethical, moral, and legal, then what I don't understand what could be the problem, you know. But fear is real. And I know that God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind. And I have to, I'm into not so much change as much as transformation. And it's a mindset. So what you do is provide and fill yourself with information and inspiration that could propel you to start changing and shifting your thoughts. So it's kind of like, this is what I say when I look at a habit, I look at it as compound interest for self improvement. And what
Mm-hmm.
I mean by that is, when I get up in the morning and if I get on social media, that will take, I don't know how many hours. Why? I mean, is that contributing to what it is that I have to do? No, it slows me down and it keeps me stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Or so, so when you talk about fear, I first of all, I pray to God because sometimes we get to a point where we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I
Mm-hmm.
was in a place in my life where I was not happy. I was like, now, God, you said that you died so that I may live and live life more abundantly. Well, I'm not living life more abundantly. So what's the deal? So I have to constantly feed myself, pour into myself, and also take care of myself as well. Because as women, I always say we're very powerful. Anybody that can conceive, carry, and deliver a child, to me in itself, it's a miracle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many things we do and can do as women, but yet we need to take care of ourselves so that we can help other people. So the fear to me was a process. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right. When I was writing the book, it was about fear. I didn't want to be exposed. I didn't want to be exposed because I didn't want people to know my story.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why in the letter I wrote love letters to women. Like, dear women, it all starts with your backstory, or dear women that have mental and physical challenges in their life. Let's talk about it. Or dear
Mm-hmm.
women who has ever questioned whether there was a God. Or dear women who are trying to figure out what their purpose is. So I talk about all of those things that I believe many of us have had those experiences. So then you can read them and look at the content into my story, and then from that point I'll write what I knew, what I learned from, and then I also have scriptures to back it up. So
Mm-hmm.
the fear to me is a work in process, and I also have an accountability partner that helps me through that as well.
Yeah, you tell us much more about accountability partners later on. Uh, but you mentioned the letter that you wrote to yourself, and I had a chance to have a glimpse of your book, and I discovered that you've written not chapters but letters, letter one, letter two, until letter 12. Why is that? Is it letters that you wrote to yourself that you compiled into this book? And tell us a bit more on that,
Yeah,
please.
I wanted to, why I call them love letters, because I think many times we are our worst critic. So, so that's why I say, dear women, this,
Mhm.
dear women, that, because a lot of my story is their story.
Mm,
I guarantee as they go through those pages, they will see themselves. And it's not a matter of fact. So my thing was, I thought I would be judged,
mm,
because, I wore a mask, a figurative mask. With
mm-hmm.
that meant I couldn't be authentic. Why was that? What
Mm,
am I hiding from? But yet I find out if I'm able to speak my truth and love, then I'm free. I get
mm,
free from being stuck. And life, we always say, is tough enough. So why not start being who we were created to be and love who we were created to be and accept who we were created to be and know that we deserve to have a good life, and all of that is within our power to do so.
mm. That's great. Wonderful. And back a little bit, you mentioned about exposing yourself to information and inspiration. I like that. And it all begins with I. It's not the other person, it's not the government. This is what I believe, and I hope that you agree with me. It's not the government, it's not the enemies that are against you, it's not about how or where you were born. It's about I. And I expose myself to information and inspiration, and I take an action into the direction that I want to move into. With the help of God, I believe we can.
Right. That's right.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I do take the eye out of a lot of things, because I always say no one's an island. We're not
Mm-hmm.
here to be alone. And I always say if I'm in a group or have a circle of influence and I know more than everyone in that circle, then I need to get into another one, because
Mm-hmm.
you're never too old to learn. You're never too old to grow. And we should be more focused on serving than more on winning. We're so competitive, unless it's a sports, a game. Well, but it's like, I want to do better than this, but I want to do this. I'm comparing myself to this person. No, you need to be who you are, because I guarantee you really don't know what's going on in that person's life. They may
Mm-hmm.
look great on social media, they may look great on television, but I guarantee you that you want to stay in the shoes that you're in, because you don't have a clue and you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Mm. And it ends with I. So it's you. Consider, look inside yourself, and just and also don't judge the others. I mean, if you see that they are going in the direction that you may not admire, or something that may not inspire you,
Right.
you never know. You actually don't know what is going on
Yeah,
in the
that's
person's
right.
life. And you also talk about having a board of directors, a personal board of directors, and I'm curious to hear more about that.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm,
I just talked about your circle of influence. For example, I used to, my grandfather used to always say, if you show me your checkbook, I'll tell you where your heart is.
mm,
And so my board, companies have boards, nonprofit, profit companies, and that people sit on the board that has the best interest of the company. And they also invest in the board as well. So
mhm,
when I say your personal board of directors, I mean like people that, like, for example, I'll tell you mine. I have a partner on my board. Like if I need some advice, a spiritual advice, like something about God, a woman who really knows the Lord, and I will call her and talk about some of the things that I'm going through. Who
mhm,
else is on my board is a financial advisor. I
mhm,
have her, and that's why I was blessed and able to retire early at the age of 55, because that was a goal of mine. Who else is on my board is a person that keeps it real. And I'm like, keeps it real, keeps me having fun and laughing and not becoming so serious. I have a coach on my board.
mhm,
I have my confidant on my board. So you have a circle of people on your board that has your best interest. I did a little video about chess. And on the chessboard, there's one piece that's the female. That's the
mhm,
only woman on the board. But yet, I talk about and how powerful they can move in different areas, but it depends on who else is on the board. So hopefully you have someone on your board that wants to win as well. So if you
Mhm.
have people on your board that's like crabs, nah, dream killers and all of that, you need to reconsider who's on your board because association brings about assimilation. So you want somebody, now you don't want a yes man, a yes person, like everything, yeah, that's right, that's right. I'm okay with people challenging me on my board because that's important to me. I don't know it all.
Mm. And I like that also. And it's not all of us who are always welcome to people who are going to challenge what I'm doing. I mean, many of us want to be bosses. Anything that I say should be done exactly the way I've said it and nothing more.
That's
So,
right.
so it's good that you tell us that we need some people who challenge anything that we do, not those people who say, "Go on, yes, you're doing right, everything is good." I
That's
mean,
right.
someone that I should always think of when I'm doing something, who is going to look at it and say, "Anthony, this is nothing.
That's
You need to
right.
do better."
That's right.
Yeah, and we have just talked about the board of directors, but previously we had mentioned about an accountability partner. And I kind of think that yes, I have a board of directors, but I also have an inner circle. That's someone that
Mhm.
and it's, I mean, it's kind of marrying with what we've just talked of someone who's after you, someone who is going to stop you on your way so that you don't stand on your way.
That's right. That's right.
Um, so, what is it that the difference? Maybe is there another difference that we may have not mentioned to do with this accountability partner?
Well, it is. I have an accountability partner, and this is what we do annually. In the
Mm,
beginning of the year, we'll write down like what is it that we want to accomplish for the year. We'll
mhm.
also have like what are we proud of? What have we accomplished? What is our plan or what's on our to-do list for next week?
Mhm.
Or what's our quarterly goals? And then we meet and we go over them
Okay.
and it's not a long conversation. Sometimes we're 30 minutes, sometimes we're an hour, and we go through it and we hold each other accountable.
Mm,
It's like my goal was to write a book, and my goal was that for a couple years. He's like, okay, so what are we going to do? Well, and then when COVID came 2020, that's when I wrote my book. 2020, 2021. And so we both hold each other accountable for what it is that we want to do. And that kind of, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to talk to her on Wednesdays. And, I gotta make sure I did this and did that because we just hold each other accountable. And we
mm,
take the time to write down our plans and what it is, our to-do list and what are our goals for the year because that helps us stay focused and that provides us something to move towards. So
mm.
that's an accountability partner.
I love that. I also love something that you mentioned in passing right there. Uh, Something that I've been excited about in the last several months or maybe a year or 2 years. That statement, and then COVID came. And then something good came out of it. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not something that we are always expecting. I mean, a challenge comes and then I'm going to draw something good out of it. But then so much good happened during the bad times. And I want to know
Mhm.
from you, what's your perspective on challenges, the trials, or maybe dangers that you meet along the way?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Well, I look at it in the eyes of God. I try very hard, and it's just like, for an example, I don't like to be late for anything, right?
Hmm.
And if I am running late or something happens that I'm supposed to be at an appointment and I'm late, and I'll say, you know what? Maybe God was saving me because I would have gone down this highway. So I didn't go down that highway. So I had to go another way to buy some time or something
Hmm.
like that. And I looked at COVID and I saw a lot from COVID. One of the things that was very striking for me, and I'm glad that it came out, is a lot of people started suffering with mental illness. And I know that mental illness was there before COVID.
Mm,
COVID just provided an opportunity for it to be okay. Because this person says, it's no longer business as usual. It was business as unusual. And people were struggling with that because they couldn't control. Like
mm,
they thought they were in control all along. And so when I look at that, I'm like, wow, I'm so glad it came out. I'm so glad it's becoming front and center because people were suffering with mental illness before that.
mm,
And if they kept it quiet, they would just blow up like they probably were anyway. And that was one thing that I was happy about because it was exposed and people need to deal with it. It's an illness like cancer. It's an illness like a heart disease. It's just an illness. And it was like taboo. So people didn't want to confront it. People didn't want to talk about it. But just talking through it, talking about it is just very helpful because we have a negative connotation about it. But now you hear more people talking about their mental illness struggles.
mm,
So that's what how I pivot when things like that happen, and also let you know who was really in control. And also now people are like, I don't want to go to work anymore. I want to work from home. So it just kind of changed the way things used to be because that was the way. So now people had to get out of their way and see that there were other things that we had to do in order to survive, and it was okay. It's
mm.
okay to work from home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's just interesting how some of the things happen in our life so that they may draw us inward, so that we may realize whom we are. We may also look around and see how things are happening and appreciate what we've been having, and
Yes,
also maybe pave a way from where we are to where we want to go.
that's
So,
right.
yeah, and it's unfortunate, even during COVID, how many lives were lost,
Hmm.
and we pray for those people who
Yes.
suffered greatly during that time. And stretching back far, looking at something that we talked about, your childhood growing up, and those who may have grown up in tough situations, experiencing challenges, or those that you've just mentioned who have been through some tough diseases and come out of it. Some of these things leave us with something that you also mentioned, and maybe you are going to give us an insight on that. Scars, the scars that we carry with us, the emotional scars, and
Mhm.
sometimes the physical scars that we have on us. Uh, how do we look at that?
Yeah. And that's why I wrote a chapter about dear women with scars and resentment, because if we fall down and we guys have scratches, it's visible to the
Mm-hmm.
eye because you perhaps bleeding, you need a band-aid or whatever. But you know what? It's no different when you have scars internally because they will come out externally. And one of the things I say is you may look at a person and you all are the same age, and you'll look at that person and say, wow, they've aged. Like, oh my gosh. And that's that stuff on the inside that we're not letting out. And that's what that comes from, you know. And that's why I talk about we need to face it, recognize it, get help for it. And I will give you an example of a scar that I had. And when I was in the first grade, I was bullied by a little girl because I was a little girl, right? And I didn't understand. And then one day she came to school and she said, my mom said that I should not bully you because you're my sister. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, because it's in the book, is I went home and I asked my mom, and she said it wasn't true. So for years, people was telling me this, that she was and she lived around the corner, that she was
Mm-hmm.
my sister, and she was a little older than me. And and when I finally came to grips that, you know what, I think she is. Think she is because of things I observed, things my mom would say. My dad didn't mention it. So a matter of fact, she was my sister.
Oh.
And I regretted that because I felt, why didn't my parents tell me? They're my parents. They're my protector. They say they love me and they weren't being honest with me. And I dealt with that for years because it was painful. And then I thought things weren't happening to me because of what was done to them, curses. I was just really struggling about it. And she is. And what my goal is to create a relationship. We don't really have a relationship because I didn't know. She knew. But now, she has children, she has grandchildren. I have a niece now. You remember in the beginning, I said I grew up as an only child, but I
Mm,
have a sister now. So if I didn't let that go, I wouldn't be where I am today because it bothered me for years because I felt my parents lied to me. And although they didn't tell me, this is what I said. They did the best they could for what they knew at that time because our parents were children too, and they have a background as well, and they've been through things as well. So it's not just us, generation to generation, we've all have been through. So that's the way that I looked at it, and now that I understand the background of my parents, I see why, and I'm okay with that. And my parents loved me to the core. So that didn't negate that they didn't love me. They did, but they had stuff going on too. So that's the way I kind of looked at it. And those were things that got me stuck because I wouldn't let go of that. And then when you keep it in you, that's where the mental illness comes in. That's where the anger issues come in. There's just so many emotional things that come in when you have those scars. So it's time to let them go because everybody has them. It's
mm,
something. Everybody has a story.
sure.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story, and we really thank you for being here with us and telling us your story and sharing with us all those insights that you shared with us on this episode of Now Tell Us. And that's about it for today. But before we go, would like to know, someone is listening here or is watching us and would like to follow up with you, maybe connect with you, or maybe get your book. The book is Your Way in Your Way. How can they reach you?
They can go on my website, CassandraCrawley.com. On my website, you can purchase the book. The book is also on Amazon and other places where books are sold. I'm on social media presence. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and just type in Cassandra Crawley Mayo, and I will certainly be coming up. So that's how you can find me. And my email is mayo@CassandraCrawley.com.
Oh, thank you. So that's for those who are listening or watching, CassandraCrowley.com, www.CassandraCrowley.com. Go and connect with Cassandra and stop being on your way.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and that's about it. But before we go, we would like you to leave us with a few words that we should always remember. Which are they? Now tell us.
Um, I want to kind of talk about your thoughts. There are two thoughts that a person can have. And one is they can either be a thought that impairs your ability or a thought that empowers your ability. You have a choice. Which one would you choose? Impair it or empower it?
Mm, that's beautiful. We have a choice to make,
Yes,
and you either choose to go left or right.
that's
You
right.
either choose a thought that impairs or a thought that empowers. What a
Yes.
wonderful insight that you gave us today.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
thank
My
we
pleasure.
Yes, we also thank you all our viewers, our listeners. After we are through with this episode, if you go to our website nowtellus.com, you get to see past episodes, future episodes, and specifically this episode. And remember, please, to share it with everyone around you so that they get to enjoy just like you've enjoyed listening to this. Thank you very much. Once more, we thank Cassandra. And I have been your host, Anthony Moirore. And together with Cassandra, our guest today, we are saying bye for now.
Bye for now.
Mm.